At 10:47 p.m., Elena finishes a 12-hour hospital shift. One patient shouted at her. A supervisor questioned a decision she had already explained. Dinner is still waiting to be solved. In the parking garage, she orders dinner, then dessert. On the way home, she makes one convenience store stop. At home, she adds a hoodie to an online cart. None of the purchases looks reckless. Together, they reveal something else. The bad day followed her all the way to checkout. The next morning, Elena sees 4 charges: food, delivery fees, the store stop, the hoodie, dinner removed, a decision. Dessert gave the night a better ending. The store offered a few quiet minutes with no one asking anything from her. The hoodie promised comfort tomorrow. The useful question is not whether she needed every item. It is what job the purchases were hired to do. Part of the bill paid for products. Another part paid for a temporary change in feeling. We imagine a clean sequence. Feel something at work, leave work, then make a separate money decision. Emotion does not respect that border. Research shows that feelings created by one event can carry into an unrelated choice, changing how relief, convenience, risk, or reward feels later. This does not mean every bad mood produces the same behavior. Anger, fear, sadness, fatigue, and loneliness are different, and people respond differently. Emotional spending is a question about function. Was the transaction solving a practical need or trying to regulate the moment? In one experiment, using real money and real goods, sadness carried into an unrelated economic decision. Participants in a sad state were willing to give up more money to acquire an item, especially when their attention had turned strongly toward themselves. That finding is narrower than the internet version of sad people shop more. It involved a particular emotion, setting, and condition, but it reveals the pattern. What an object feels worth can move when the buyer is also trying to move away from an unwanted emotional state. Another set of studies examined what people call retail therapy. A bad mood increased unplanned self-treats, but the behavior was not always mindless. Some people appear to use the treat deliberately to improve how they felt, and the mood benefit could last beyond the purchase. That matters because a self-treat can genuinely work. The problem is not that relief is imaginary. The problem begins when the brain learns only one dependable route from distress to relief, and that route always passes through a payment screen. Researchers found that making purchase decisions could reduce lingering sadness. Their explanation centered on control. Sadness is often connected with circumstances acting upon us. Shopping reverses the direction. You compare, choose, and approve. Something happens because you decided it would. After a shift in which Elena controlled almost nothing, checkout offers one immediate place where her preference becomes final. Because that relief is real, the pattern becomes learnable. Bad shift, purchase, better feeling, repeat. The product may change while the emotional job stays the same. A warehouse supervisor leaves a conflict-filled shift and pays extra for the fastest dinner because another decision feels unbearable. A father walks out of a difficult school meeting and buys treats for everyone, partly to change the emotional temperature before the family reaches home. A young consultant watches a project disappear after weeks of work, then orders a premium desk accessory that makes tomorrow feel like a new beginning. Different purchases, the same hidden request. Make this evening feel different from the day that produced it. The cost of a bad day is rarely one dramatic shopping spree. More often, it is a chain of small premiums. The faster meal instead of planned groceries. The delivery fee because waiting feels impossible. The add-on because the night deserves something good. The store stop that extends the feeling. The online order after the practical need has already been met. Each decision is easy to defend alone. The pattern appears only when we place the decisions next to the emotion that came before them. Buying dinner after a shift is not evidence of emotional spending. Elena is hungry. Convenience, time, and energy have value. The distinction appears when we ask what the purchase must accomplish. A meal can solve hunger. It can also be asked to erase humiliation, reward endurance, restore control, and rescue the ending of the day. Listen for the sentence before checkout. I deserve this. Today does not count. I need something good. If the language describes the day rather than the product, the transaction may be carrying an emotional assignment. Most spending advice enters too late. It asks, do I really need this? After the item has already become the reward. At that point, saying no can feel like losing the only good part of the evening. The product debate becomes a debate about whether you are allowed relief. A better pause begins before judging the item. First, identify the state that arrived at checkout. Not, I am bad with money. Something accurate. Disappointed, dismissed, overstimulated, lonely, depleted, or angry. Naming the feeling separates the event from the product. Then give the feeling one alternate route for 10 minutes. Sit in the car with one song and no notifications. Walk one block before entering the store. Call the person who makes the day feel smaller. Take a hot shower before opening the shopping app. Drink something cold, change clothes, or write the angry sentence you do not plan to send. The action does not have to fix the day. It only has to prove that relief and payment are not the same thing. The reset is simple. First, name the feeling in one accurate word. Second, choose a free or already paid for reward that changes the next 10 minutes. Third, return to the purchase and ask, do I still want this, or did I want what I hoped it would make me feel? This is not a rule that every emotional purchase must be rejected. It gives the emotional need another option before one-click convenience makes the decision permanent. 3 nights later, Elena has another difficult shift. In the garage, she notices the familiar sentence, I need something good. She names the feeling more precisely, dismissed and depleted. She plays one song, walks to the far end of the garage, and sends a voice note to a friend. 10 minutes later, she still buys dinner. Hunger did not disappear, but she skips the second stop and leaves the hoodie in the cart. The pause did not remove comfort. It separated comfort from momentum. Tomorrow, Elena may decide the hoodie is worth buying. She may choose dessert after a hard shift because she enjoys it and has room for it. The system is not designed to make pleasure earn a courtroom defense. It reveals when a purchase has been assigned an impossible job. Repair the day, restore dignity, prove effort mattered, and make tomorrow feel safer. Once that job is visible, she can still spend, but the product no longer has to pretend it is the only doorway to relief. Create a small bad day menu before the next bad day arrives. One song, one person, one short walk, one comforting meal already at home, one activity that requires no new purchase. Choose options that remain realistic when energy is low. A 10-minute alternate reward is not therapy. It will not solve serious distress or harmful, uncontrollable spending. It is simply a practical interruption, a way to make sure a bad day does not automatically receive permission to write tomorrow's receipt. A bad day becomes expensive when money is asked to do more than buy the item. It is asked to change the feeling, restore control, and give the day a better ending. Before your next bad day checkout, name the emotion and try one 10-minute alternate reward. Then decide again. In the comments, write one item for your bad day menu, the free or paid for action you will try first. And subscribe to Hidden Wealth Systems for more patterns hiding inside ordinary money moments. See the pattern, change the outcome.